So welcome to everybody listening now and in the future. My name is Kate White, and I am here in partnership with Brett Harris. We run Prenatal and Perinatal Healing online. And today we welcome Nir Esterman, who will be giving this 2-hour workshop, Prenatal and Perinatal Trauma and Vulnerability to Narcissistic Abuse in Relationships. So I would just like to take a minute and introduce Nir. Nir Esterman is the developer of Shadow Constellations, a teacher of family constellations and embodied shadow work, and a body psychotherapist. He developed Shadow Constellations from his 20 years of practice and personal experience, which includes overcoming cancer at age 22, years of supporting professionals from the healing and developmental fields, and having a full practice for over 14 years. Nir's passion is developing interdisciplinary approaches for being present, compassionate, trauma-aware, and embodied, with a multidimensional approach to healing. Nir is based in Israel and teaches internationally. He is a staff member of the Constellations Path Institute for Systemic Constellations and the online Systemic Trauma University. Nir is a presenter at various professional conferences. And Brett and I have invited him to teach in the online school his shadow constellations and feel he is bringing a ways for us to evolve our paradigm. So please, Nir, go ahead.
Thank you, Kate. Good evening or morning or whichever time you are, everybody. I'm really glad to see you all today. Those who are present here at the moment and those who will watch later, you're all very welcome. So my name is Nir Esterman, and as Kate said, I'm the developer of Shadow Constellations, which focuses mostly on shadow work in the generational trauma and how to combine the two for being safer, deeper, and wider professionals. This meeting today is a bit different because I'm going to bring things that I usually don't teach in the training, at least not the basic training. But I do work a lot with in my clinic, since many of my clients, I realize over the years, are children to narcissistic parents, one or both, and or have been in narcissistic abusive relationships. And I've identified some recurring patterns in how things work or not work for them in life and in relationships. And I kind of felt that I shouldn't be keeping it just to myself. And since I'm not teaching it at the moment, I felt that the best solution would be to just give it away to whomever may benefit from it. I gave a similar lecture last week in Hebrew for Hebrew speakers, which was very successful, and lots of people asked for the same only in English. So here we are today, and I hope it will be successful for you, for each one of you, however you define success. In this lecture or talk today, we'll be looking at certain ways to identify narcissistic relationships. Some of the ways are probably well known, especially if you've been in the field for a while. Hopefully, I'll be able to show you one or two more ways which are less spoken about, at least in what I've met so far, on the energetic or soul level, and some ways to work with it. So we'll have some 2 or 3 experiential processes during today. Before we go into the content itself and the work itself, I would like to put a few ground rules or safety rails, if you like. The most basic of which is, please don't take anything I say as granted or as an order to do something, or that you must believe what I say. That's not the thing. I'm offering here a perspective and developed from my experience. I'm just one person meeting a number of people over the years, and so my perspective is necessarily limited. If your experience is different, that's okay. I'll be happy to learn from you as well. If you find something useful in what I say, you can just take what is useful and live here with me, and what you find less useful. Naturally, it's a one-to-many event, so I will be giving different instructions during the experiential processes. You don't have to follow anything that I ask you to do. You're welcome to do it if it feels right. And if it doesn't feel right, or you feel overwhelmed, or you feel an inner no to doing something, please respect that. And not whatever you think you should be doing because I happen to be the teacher today. In general, this topic of narcissism may be overwhelming for some of us. And depending on our history and family history and relationship history, it can touch on some quite vulnerable and overwhelming places. So please take good care of yourself while you watch and participate. If you need to take a break, it's okay. If you need to slow down, breathe, do some body thing, or if you're coming from the constellation microcosmos, if you can put a representation for support for yourself, or you can share something that you're experiencing. I may be able to even read it if it's not too long, and perhaps respond to it. We'll see. And if you need to just stop or lie down and just listen without participating, this is also really, really fine. Okay? Yeah? Okay. This talk is recorded. Kate, it's recorded in speaker mode, right? Yeah, okay. So I'm only visible, but you are heard. So if there is something that you don't want people to hear in the recording, either don't say it or write it, and so that your privacy is kept. And nevertheless, I would appreciate any sharings, feedback, and questions you have during the talk, because it's not just I'm talking and you're listening. We're doing it together. Okay. So these were the preliminaries, and if I miss something, I will get back to it later. And let's begin with the content itself. So I'm not going to define what narcissism is. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and definitions are not really my thing. I will also not go into is your partner or ex-partner or parent a narcissist or something else. Is it at the level of a personality disorder, or are these just personality traits in to smaller or greater degree? Because we're just too many people to do that, and because that's not what I do. And so so I will be talking about narcissism, yes, even without clearly defining it. I will, in a moment, start to go over a list of things that should make us suspect, especially when there are many of them, that we've found ourselves in a narcissistic relationship, which may mean that a person is a narcissist, and can also mean that they have some narcissistic traits, and that they're also responding to what we bring from our history of narcissistic relationships. So it's not about blaming them or us or anyone. It's about noticing the energetic dynamics that underlie at least some of such relationships, and see how this information can support us. Probably there are here people who come from personal interest because you have this in your life, and people who come here because you're professionals and you would like to know better how to work with people around this topic. And probably many of you hold both hats on your head. You're all welcome. If you're a therapist that did not come from personal background with narcissism, then some of the work you will be needing to, instead of doing with yourself, imagining yourself doing it with the client around their relationships. So maybe the first and easiest, I call them narcissism tests, because many of my clients at one point come to me and say, Nir, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm the narcissist here. What should I do? I'm like, you just failed the first test. A true narcissist would not ask if they're a narcissist. Okay? They don't care that much about it. They're more interested in other things and how they feel and how they can feel good, and not so much about how it affects other people, in the extreme cases, of course. But it's a good sign. Okay, so if you ask yourself seriously, not just to make the other person feel okay, if you really ask yourself, hell, am I a narcissist? That's a pretty good sign you failed test number one. A second self-test is this. When you meet people, not necessarily could be clients, but mostly, friends and family. If I will or someone else would ask them, after having met you and sat with you for half an hour or an hour or 2 hours, do they feel nourished? Not intellectually, not even on the ego level. Do they feel nourished on the belly level? Okay. If people spend time with you, and after having spent time with you, they feel more full, they feel better about themselves in general, and they feel that they have been nourished at least a bit, so they're not drained in any way, or at least no more than they came, you fail another test. On the other hand, if the person that you are wondering if they're a narcissist, when you meet them, you tend to feel less energy, like you've been drained, even though everything seemed fine on the visible level, that's not so good sign. Okay? It's like you should feel some warmth in your belly spreading over to the rest of your body. Okay? This was such a nourishing meeting. And if you feel the opposite, and not just once or twice, but generally, that's a sign to consider. Another one, which is more common and many people talk about, is the inability to be in touch with guilt. People with a high degree of narcissism find it really difficult to deal with their guilt, meaning they're never to blame. There are different ways in which they react to blame, anything from giving you the silent treatment, to blaming you, to leaving, and to having a tantrum about how miserable they are and how they're always fucking up everything. But in any of these options and other options, you just don't feel like they're in touch with their guilt. Maybe they are pushing it away, rejecting it, and maybe they are wallowing in it, but are not in touch with it. So then it feels like they're not really wanting or even able to take responsibility over having hurt you in some way. Okay? Now there are degrees to that as well, right? But generally, if that's a constant, so if you can never tell someone that you feel hurt by what they said or what they did, because immediately you're either attacked or the focus turns to them, that's not a good sign. If it feels like they say whatever you want to hear, but then they keep acting the same way, that's not a good sign. Okay? Now, everything I say, you have to remember, it's not like, oh, it happened once or twice, this man or woman must be a narcissist, okay? If it happens regularly over time and it feels like this is the deal, this is what I have to live with if I want to be in touch with that person, okay? we all have our bad moments. None of us likes to be judged. And sometimes we take energy from people, and sometimes we're self-absorbed, and that's okay if it's on a sometimes basis. Okay. Next one. Does it feel like they are helpful and appreciative and giving from themselves only or mainly when there is benefit for them in it? Either a direct benefit, so you give them something in return, or a public relations benefit. I gave my child everything. I gave them so much money. I bought him a house. Why don't they love me back? I give them the house so that I can say what a great person I am, that I'm taking care of my children. But it's not really because love and nurturing, it's about how it is seen. So narcissists tend to look at how is this seen from the outside. Their what's the word? Their visibility is much more important than the actual thing itself. If it makes good impact on other people, great. If it's not making any impact on people, if they can't use it to make themselves look better, and they're still doing it, that's a good sign. If they can't use it in any way, or they don't get anything from it, so they won't do it. But if you are like in the presence of others, and then they say, yes, of course I'll help you. But they won't do it afterwards when no one is watching, that's a bad sign. Enmeshment. So enmeshment is a professional term. Basically, it means that narcissism or narcissistic people, the more a person is narcissistic, the less they are distinct. The less they have a sense of there is them and there is us. It's more like there is them and there is something that they use. In the same way that I don't ask my hand for permission to take the cup. It's my hand, you know? It doesn't have emotions, or if it has emotions, I'm not aware of it. Okay? So the extreme narcissist would use people in the same way, as if they're objects to be used, to be discarded when not useful, and to be taken care of when they are useful. We see it often in narcissistic families. There's like the golden child who suffers deep inside, but on the outside they receive everything, and they're being well taken care of, and they're the black sheep or the scapegoat who are blamed for everything, and suffer neglect, sometimes physical serious neglect, sometimes more of an emotional neglect. So a true narcissist is almost totally focused on herself or himself. They see other people as something to use, and everything is about them. So if their child decides to learn fine arts instead of computer science, or vice versa, and it reflects bad on them, then it's like, why did you do it to me? If the children decide to marry the wrong person, so to speak, or choose a different religion, or go to live someplace else, why are you doing this to me? Like, I'm not doing this to you, I'm doing this for me. But that's not really understandable in a narcissist mind. It's all about them to a large extent. They may give us what we need if they perceive that it will give them what they need. So they can make us feel big, they can make us feel important, they can bomb us with love in order for later use that. They can open doors for us. Lots of narcissistic people in high positions of power open doors knowing that they will collect the bill later. And it's very tempting to go through the open door, not fully understanding the price afterwards. A narcissist parent is a childish parent, and a childish parent needs and wants their children to be parenting children. Okay, so the narcissist has, usually at least, narcissistic people did not receive nourishment and nurturing as well from one or both of their parents for whatever reasons. Which means they go around in the world feeling as if they are lacking a parent. And then they unconsciously pull their children to fill that place. So instead of nurturing their children, they want their children to nurture them. This has all kinds of effects. We see it a lot in family constellations, how it affects the family system, and in general in family therapy. But again, it's one of the signs when it looks like an adult needs a younger person, their child, to be their parent. That's not so good. Okay, depending on degree, depending on is it always like that or just sometimes. But it's one of those signs, because it means that the needs of the parent are more important than the needs of the child, which is not a good thing. I'm not saying that the parent should sacrifice themselves for the sake of their children, but they should also not sacrifice the children for their own sake. Being a narcissistic extension. So it's a bit about this use thing, right? But when it feels like I'm so glad that you received this scholarship. It says so much about how I was such a good parent that made you get that scholarship. Okay, and wow, it's amazing that you bought this new car. Now everyone will know that you come from a good family that can afford this kind of cars. So again, it is self-centered, but it really feels like the child of a narcissistic person is an extension. They're interesting as long as they benefit and reflect well on the parent. And if they stop doing that, then they become often the black sheep, the devils, the bad children, the unloved, the ungrateful children. We gave you everything. You're the child of a princess. Why don't you appreciate what you received from us? We put so much effort for you, and so on and so forth. So you're loved as long as you make the narcissistic parent proud. And when you don't make them proud anymore, love goes out of the window. In general, in some families, it's even like the parent can have problems and need support and the ear of the child, but the child has no one to go to. Like if the child has issues, the parent is suddenly very occupied, or the parent can't even hear them, or the parent starts attacking them for having problems, because only they can have problems. The children cannot have problems. The focus has to stay on them. Manipulations. So narcissist people manipulate other people because other people are objects, and this is what we do with objects. We manipulate them. However, because people have emotions, then the manipulation is also emotional, also energetic. So if your partner or colleague or client or friend constantly manipulates you into how they want and need you to be, or how they want and need you not to be, not just once in a while around a very sensitive topic, okay? We all can be manipulative at points. No one is completely free of that. But if this is the norm, you're constantly being manipulated, that's not a good sign. And the manipulation can be more mental, with or without lies. And the manipulation can be more emotional. Oh, I'm really hurt that you say that I'm this or that. How can you, yes, do whatever you want, I'll just stay at home alone while you're with your friends, right? So it can be more emotional, relational, and it's often also energetic. And this is less spoken about. They sort of make us feel and act in certain ways which we don't like about ourselves afterwards. But it gives them fuel. It gives them emotional fuel. It gives them attention, and it gives them a reason to act towards us the way that they act towards us. And sometimes it's not even conscious. But they keep manipulating us into where they want and need us for them to be nurtured by us. For that matter, there's no difference if we are angry at them or if we are adoring them. Okay? It's all the same. They need the emotional content to be nurtured. It's what they miss. It's what they didn't get. Okay. Now let us take a moment to notice these manipulations and how they look on the energetic level. I saw the question on the chat. I'll get to it soon. So please take a moment to think about a person with whom you are or were in a relationship. Could be romantic, collegial, and professional, with a parent, with someone else, that you have a strong suspicion or full knowledge they're narcissistic or with very strong narcissistic traits. Okay. Do you need a moment, or do you already have one in mind if you came here today? I would really appreciate if more of you could open your cameras, because with 50% cameras off, it's taking too much of my energy. So please make the effort. If you can't technically, it's okay, but if you can't technically, please do it. Okay, thank you. Okay, so take a moment to think about this person, and then please close your eyes. And look at the two of you. You can look from your first body perspective, so you're you and they're they, and you can look at the two of you from the side, whichever works best for you. And what I invite you to look at is the energetic level. So you're looking at the energetic channels or the energetic lines that connect you to each other. Take a moment just to look. Notice, for example, the direction. Are they coming from the front of the body, from the heart, from the belly? Are they landing at the front of your body? Are they coming or landing from the sides, from below, from behind? There could be more than one answer here. Notice how many lines are there. It's like 3, 5, 7, 10, 20, 50, 100, hundreds, thousands. Different kinds of relationships would give different results here. I'll speak about it later. notice the width of the channels. Are they very thin? Are they wide? Does it feel like something is coming in two directions, like some energy is coming from you, some energy is coming from them? Does it feel like you're giving more, they're giving more, you're giving it all, they're giving it all? Just notice. It can be different between channels with the same person. And also notice if the channels sort of naturally connect to you, or does it feel like they've somehow sort of penetrated into your system, like found the way in somehow, even though it's not what you wanted? Especially if you see some that goes from the sides and behind. Where do they go in your body? Where do they reach in your body? And what is the effect that these different channels have on you? Are they nourishing? Are they more manipulative? Are they taking from you something else I'm not mentioning? And for now, we're just looking at those channels and like noticing. Maybe you've noticed some or all of them in the past. Maybe it's partially or fully new. Just notice how these arrangements of channels affects you, in what way. And if you feel a bit overwhelmed, take a breath, feel your body, do something that supports or regulates your nervous system. And let us all slowly come back to the here and now. And I'd like to invite you to share what you've noticed. You can do it verbally, unmute yourselves, or you can write in the chat and I will read and I'll try to relate to at least some.
Feel free to write things in the chat. And Leslie has her hand up there, Nir.
Please, Leslie.
Yeah, I noticed when I put him here and me here, I felt dismissed. I noticed he was distracted, focused on the quantity of money he was making, fame, success, and ignoring my feedback and seeing me as serving him like a servant.
How did you see the channels?
Pardon?
How were the channels like between you two?
Channels?
Energetic connections.
Oh, energetically. He was big and I was little. Is that answering your question? And
it's a part of the dynamic, but it's still not telling us how are the connections between you two.
oh,
Which is what this specific exercise is about.
can you give me an example of that?
I just gave lots of examples during the
okay.
exercise, so I can't repeat it right now.
Okay.
I apologize.
Got
But
it.
it's okay. Maybe you can watch the recording again.
Like
later.
I'm giving more, like the channels would be me giving energy. Is that what you're talking about?
It could take that form, yes.
Okay.
Thank you,
And
Leslie.
uh,
Sharmista, please.
Yeah, hi Nir. Thank you for this session. So I noticed a much thicker pipe from my navel to the other person's navel, and it was a wider pipe and it was gray in color. And when you spoke about the movement of energy from one place to the other, I initially just noticed it was all gray, but as I was in it, it was more white light flowing from me and pushing the gray back in there. So that was the second experience. And the third was how much of it is in me. I noticed it like having roots going and covering various parts of my stomach. And then I realized it was engulfing and making my digestive system sick. So this is my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharmista. So we can see that some of the energy is going away from you on one hand, and the connections go deeply inside, connecting with some.
Now there is going to be like some 5-6 rounds.
There's someone unmuted here. Thank you. Which is also one of the signs when there are like roots in us that either draw from us energy or manipulate us. Thank you. Anna, please.
Thank you, Nir. I was exploring the connection between me and my father, and I was looking at both of us from another perspective. And I live quite far away from my dad. I live in a different country now, and we don't really keep in touch that much anymore. But I still saw 3 quite strong channels: one coming from my heart, one from my solar plexus, and one from my navel. It was very uncomfortable and overwhelming, actually. And the energy was definitely flowing just in one direction, from me to him. And it felt like sucking energy, really. And like I couldn't really do much about it. That was a bit strange. And then what crossed my mind to explore if that setup would have been different if I looked at us when I was younger, and the amount of the channels was different. I literally saw them like plugged in all over my body. And then I observed in a timeline how I've been unplugging them. And what was interesting, what came to my mind is I've done a lot of constellation work trying to reconnect and heal the relationship with my dad. And what clicked in my mind now is all the disconnections that I've been doing was a protective mechanism, actually, because it was never safe for me to connect with him on a healthy level.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. So you're touching in here another important aspect is that many children of narcissistic parents sort of cut away the channels, the energetic channels from their parents, because as we see, they're being used against us, or to take away from us, or to feed on us. But when that happens, we're also cutting away the flow of energy of life. And then we're less likely to succeed, we're less likely to feel safe and grounded, less able to fulfill ourselves. And we need to find this balance of accepting that these are the parents who are horrible or difficult or whatever, as they are, and accept life from them without accepting the narcissistic nurturing and dynamic. Thank you. Rosemary, please.
Hello.
Hello.
I was viewing myself in the father of my children, and the only channel I could experience was, it was like a vacuum excuse me, I'm going to close the window. From his abdomen to mine. That was.
Vacuum. Mm.
Mhm. And when
And
you said to evaluate like the consequence of that, I just felt like a folding in on myself, like I've been, yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, vacuum is pulling at us very strongly.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the pain.
Mm.
Maybe we'll be able to do something about it soon. Okay.
Okay.
Hopefully. Thank you. Pavel, пожалуйста.
I was trying to feel.
Just can you open your camera so that I can see you while you talk, please? Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Pavel?
So,
I think your connection
I
is
was
not
trying
so
hard.
good.
You can. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, my connection is not stable. So when I talk, my camera
Okay.
switches off.
Okay.
Can I speak like this?
Please, yes.
So maybe I'm tired from today because I'm sunburned and but I was trying to imagine, like I was trying to picture me and my father in connections, but they're all very slow, very small. They are. I didn't find any big connections, and I was thinking maybe it's because our relationship now is very superficial, or maybe because I watched a lot of videos of narcissism. I was trying to understand what was going on in my childhood, back in my childhood. So I was thinking maybe it's just because I understand him that he's just a traumatized child because he didn't really have a childhood. So maybe the fact that I've forgiven him doesn't kind of like releases these connections that were very strong during the time when I was growing up, because my needs were like totally neglected, all my interests. I was only doing what my father wanted me to do and all that stuff. But when I think about it now, I understand that what he's been through, like during his childhood, surviving the war and his mother abandoning him, and he's not being able to reconnect with her. Maybe,
What I can, Pavel, what I can,
yeah.
I'm hearing you is just to remind us all. Sometimes there is neglect and there is lack of parental presence, not necessarily because of narcissism, but because of severe trauma or severe childhood trauma. So narcissism is not the only reason for people not to be there for us or to sometimes exert force on us. So I don't know, I'm not looking personally, but just when I'm listening to you, this is what comes to my mind, that I don't know if your father is a narcissist, maybe he is, but what you describe sounds more like a very traumatized person. But I don't know. I wasn't there with you when you were a child.
When I was listening, I was mostly listening to Sam Vaknin videos, and I realized that what I learned about my father's childhood resembles a lot the preconditions for the narcissism. And I could be wrong. I cannot diagnose narcissism, of course. It's just like what I feel. Because I also feel like codependent because I find a lot of traits, especially like earlier. So I also learned that one of the reasons of developing codependency is one of the parents is narcissistic. So that's what I was thinking also. But of course I can be wrong.
Trauma can also be involved. So I'll just say if you want to look at it deeper, do it with a therapist who knows the work, and then you have a better sense. Learning, identifying narcissism from YouTube or from these mass workshops like that is not the safest, most professional practice. Okay. I'm not saying it's not the case. I'm just saying that it's a little bit less clear to me at the moment. Thank you. Minelli, please.
Oh.
Hi, Nir. Yeah, so I did see this was a really interesting experience for me. Again, I think somewhere I was about the narcissism. I'm not sure if this person is a narcissist, but there were some of the things when you did your initial the checking off the list, a lot of those things checked off, and then I was having this little mental dilemma: are they not? So I found myself in that, but I decided this is my father, so I think so. It is a little blurred, a bit of a blurred line, because you make excuses for them sometimes. So when I did the exercise, I saw this. There were like this, when we were in textbooks, in geography textbooks, you would see these magnetic fields drawn. So I saw it very visually like that when I was imagining it. So I saw these two, one from my chest and one from my, like, around my navel and like solar plexus, in between somewhere there, moving towards the person, and another one connected towards on the back of my neck, like just moving down my spine, which was a very controlling feeling. And somewhere I'm still with a lot of the sensations. So I was wondering if there's anything I can do to regulate it right now, because that sensation is still, quite moving quite strong.
Yeah, I would say that in general, when the lines come from the back and from the sides, and when they feel controlling or manipulative, that's a strong sign of narcissism. Actually, when someone tells me this person is a narcissist, I'm in a narcissistic relationship and I don't see any of that, I'm like, let's check for other options. That's my experience so far. And it's possible that there are both like good heart connections and some narcissistic layer to the relationship. Again, we're not just one whole thing at all times. So it could be there are more narcissistic parts doing one thing and some other parts, and they're not working in tandem with each other, but more in a dissociative manner from each other. Let me. I want to take a moment to read what was written here and to see if I have something to say in general. So also the question about the difference between narcissistic and borderline. Well, the differences in literature are many, but for our purpose today, if you would be the subject of a borderline personality disorder and sort of grasping, it would look like hundreds to thousands of lines, like a droning person that tries to hold on something solid. Okay, because the energetic pattern on the soul level is that, like, the energetic matrix is missing when a borderline personality, when a person with borderline personality is in the depth of this, and they would just clutch and hold to dear life. It's not as manipulative as much as it is like life or death thing, which can feel very like trying to force you, but manipulations are not, or subtle manipulations are not the hallmark of that syndrome. Okay. And so whenever it feels like it comes from behind, like they come without consent, like they worm their way into you, and despite you wanting something else, it's usually a sign of a narcissistic relationship, especially if the number of lines is not very big. Okay, so 3, 5, 10, 15, 20. 20 is a lot, actually, in most cases. Usually 5 or 7 are the norm in my experience. Dara, you wanted to speak?
I do. I'm really touched by this exploration. My experience was kind of going over, looking back in time a bit. Like I feel like this year I've been doing a program where I'm learning about the chords and the energetics of my past experience in my marriage and with my child. So it was really beautiful. At first I felt, so it was a little bit of revisiting rather than feeling as clearly in present time, but it was so helpful to organize this for myself. So a knife in my back, from the back, the shock of that, a cord around the solar plexus and belly, like trying to wrap around and suck from behind. And also like my solar plexus and root chakras, like relational and grounded energy, was also aggressively, I mean, I really want to use the word attacked, like really strong energy at me. And so what I've lived from that as a mother, this energy I realized was there and building. And when my child was 13, projections from his abuse as a child came onto me, false projections. And I haven't seen my child for 2.5 years. So
Wow.
it's getting it more complex, but I'm loving the starting with this basic energetic, and it's helping me just to see and understand another level. Thank you.
Thank you, Dara, for sharing. Reading a few more comments and then we'll move on.
I'll comment. I'm sorry. I hope you can see me okay. I thought that I would look at my relationship with my daughter. And one of the things that I've really been exploring lately is for myself, is identity issues. So I think about myself as a Chicana who grew up in southern Colorado and indigenous identified and all of that. And I've been really looking at the impacts of internalized colonization, to use that languaging, and generational patterns in terms of how I treat my children and how I transferring consciously or in other ways, any trauma maybe I've experienced and patterns onto my kids. And so I want to be brave and it's not the right word. I want to be responsible because I feel like I love my children very much. And so I looked at my relationship with my 13-year-old daughter, and I thought, okay, I want to take responsibility here. And I was surprised to see that I have how I'm relating to her in ways where I'm having a narcissistic pattern. So I noticed that I have a cord. I think we have some positive cords between us, very good flows. But I noticed having one coming from my throat around her throat, like I'm choking her or stopping her from speaking. And I noticed one like from my power center coming around like her ankles or her feet, like I'm just trying to control or stop her from walking or taking her own steps. So I have a tool that I know. One of them is called common neutral ground. And I wanted to like jump to that tool and just cut all the cords and just say, okay, you plug in where you feel safe and comfortable, and we'll fill this common neutral ground with love, and let's reset. But I had to stop myself from resetting so that I could be present and clear with what I'm really seeing in the moment as what could be happening. So I wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very brave of you to share it. And I want to say that the vast majority of children of narcissistic parents will have some narcissistic behaviors, some narcissistic tendencies or ways of relating, because this is what they know. This is what we know, depending, yeah. And a part of what we are trying to do better with our children is to identify those and don't perpetuate them on. But usually we do at least some, because all of us do to some degree what was done to us, right? And we want to minimize that and we want to transform that, but first we have to acknowledge it. And that's difficult, yeah? Especially if we happen to have the trait of not wanting to feel guilty. And then it's double difficult to realize and acknowledge. But it's a first step to making very meaningful changes. And I would say that maybe cutting and what you suggested will work. However, the more you can change the nature of relation with your relevant parents, and then maybe the relationship with your daughter will change by itself. And also to say that narcissism is not just a personal thing, it's a cultural thing. Western culture is narcissist, Roman culture is narcissist, and Greek to some degree, I mean ancient Greek. And the basis of Western civilization is narcissistic. Colonialism is narcissistic. Lots of things that are in our world just like, just history, and still affects people today, even though they happened 50 or 350 years ago or more, have narcissistic cultural levels and not just personal levels. And it's good to be aware of that as well. Almost any army structure is narcissistic. There are a lot of narcissistic structures in the collective mind, in the way systems are built, first to serve us, and then they begin to use us for their survival. That's a narcissistic dynamic, right? So just to broaden our horizons when we approach this topic. I will take a moment to finish reading, and I can't reply to any more spoken sharings because I want to get to other exercises that will be even more useful than only observing what is, okay? Just giving a moment to see there is something meaningful that I want to talk about. I see a lot of draining and a lot of penetration and a lot of use, and some fast managing to put a wall or to cut it off, and some not. Yes, also a good thing to see is to look at a person as a comparison, as one of you did, to look at someone that you feel really nourished by, that you feel you have a really good relationship with, and that you really trust. And maybe it's someone from now, maybe someone from the past. someone who was completely un-narcissistic. And just notice how it feels, how the energy lines feels. Okay, so you have a sort of a, and what's called, like when they're doing the experiments, there is like control group. So as a control group, look for a moment at your energetic connections with someone who is really safe and nourishing and warm, as best as you have had that experience. Or just look at if you have a couple of friends who are good to each other and are acting in a non-narcissistic way towards each other. So notice how their energetic lines look in relation to each other. It will give you a baseline. Just to say that the fact that a person dies does not necessarily change the energetic relationship between us, as we know in family constellations. And so the one who shared about hundreds of lines, that's usually more than just narcissism. There's more of a borderline personality disorder in the dynamic. Again, I'm not diagnosing a person, just saying this is the dynamic that I've met. And there is an idea that we're healing as a collective from narcissism. Very well could be, I hope so. Okay, next. And Yvette, I'm sorry I can't hear you right now, but you're welcome to write, and I will at least read. Okay, so another aspect that we often see in narcissistic relationships with a partner, and the number one reason for finding ourselves with a narcissistic partner is because we had a narcissistic parent or something resembling a narcissistic parent, okay? There was a big enough lack of nurturing in some way. However, if you ever had a narcissistic partner or a very good friend, bordering on a partner, and one of the things that happen is that it feels like we will not be loved in the same way by anyone else. Sometimes they even say it, when you're a piece of shit and no one will love you as much as I do. And sometimes people, even after breaking up, having divorced, having not been in touch for 5 years, still miss the narcissistic ex-partner, because there is something that feels as if only through them we could find happiness, even if it wasn't happy. It felt as if through them we could have found happiness. Okay. And sometimes it's not exactly happiness, but something similar. But just that it feels like, for some reason, only with them we felt that it could happen, something good, something we wanted, being loved, being happy, being held, being nurtured, whatever. And even though it didn't actually happen, or happened just for a while and then stopped, or was happening and at the same time something more toxic was happening, it is difficult. Something makes it difficult for us to completely leave this relationship, either when we're still in it and also after some years have passed or months and we've moved on, but something in us is still over there. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you have you sensed that before? Yeah, okay, thank you. So the next exercise is aimed at that. Look, again, close your eyes, take a breath. Could be the same person, it could be a different one. But look at a person with whom you had such a relationship that you felt that only through them you could get what you really needed. Never mind if it was safety or love or happiness or something else. And now, instead of looking at the energetic channels between you two, sort of change the frequency of your eyes. And now look at them, so to speak, on the soul level, as if there is like a physical body, emotional body, mental body, psychological body. There is also a soul body. So you look at them, and what you're looking for is, you see it through colors, maybe you'll see differently. Like something that has a color which doesn't feel that it belongs to them, but belongs to you. It's like they hold inside them a piece of your own soul. It's a piece that you gave them at some point in the relationship so that they can feel you through it. They can feed you through it because that was a conscious or unconscious promise that they gave you. And if it is still with them, then you can't really live them. Because who will forfeit happiness or joy or being loved, right? So scan their body until you notice something that feels like that. Maybe it is a color, or maybe there is a felt sense that you can sense, like has your energetic signature and not theirs. Could be there is more than one, but usually there are no more than a few in most cases. Once you have identified this soul part of yours, look at it clearly and tell this soul part, you are a part of my soul. Please do it in your native tongue, in your mother tongue. You are a part of my soul. You belong with me and not with that person. Please come back home. I release you from being held by that person. I take you back. I will nurture you. I will hold you. I will be good to you. I will be good to me through you. And gently pull it towards yourself on the way, sort of cleaning it from everything which isn't yours. So it comes fully itself back to you. And invite it to find its place inside your body, to settle in, to land in, where it feels right for it to be in touch with. Breathing, allowing it to land, to reconnect, to reintegrate. Maybe it feels easy, natural. Maybe it feels like some support is needed. You can ask that soul part What do you need in order to be fully integrated back? What do you need from me? And if possible, give it. If you need to any kind of support or resourcing for the soul part to come completely back, do that in whatever way you're comfortable with. Maybe you need to release something from yourself first so that it can go back into its place. Do that if you need to. And slowly let it land and reintegrate into yourself. And if it needs more time, then just give it more time. And you can keep doing the process over the next few days if this is what you need. Take a bigger breath. Slowly come back to the here and now. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the chair. Feel your body. How are you now? How's the experience? Is there any difference in how you feel? For some of you, it may have been easy to do it. For some of you, more difficult, or touching on dissociated parts that were not ready for this process. That's also possible. In which case, I suggest continuing this with someone that you trust to hold the space for you and direct you in a more personal way. And so for someone it was disjointed and uncertain. For someone it was fantastic. For someone it felt a bit apprehensive taking those parts of the other person, almost afraid. It will change the nature of the relationship, so I can understand why it can make you afraid. That's okay. And someone feels like smiling, softer, happier, surprised. Wow, I take back my responsibility. It was amazing. I feel so much warmth and energy moving as I welcome that part home. So we can see again that sometimes the move was ready. We were ready for the move, and sometimes we were not fully ready for the move. So something more needs to be done, or a different way of holding, maybe more personal, is needed. Feel bigger, took back from ex-husband a big chunk of yellow gold energy. It will take a moment to land properly. Give it time, give it time. I was surprised that the part of me was still embodied after so many years, and even though the person is dead, I was aware that the particular part was there. I wasn't aware a particular part was there, and it makes a lot of sense now that I see it. Taking back my heat, my fire, my eros, life force, joy. Big green ball moved from his head into my heart, and it moved up into my throat and expanded. anger at them for having my part underneath the protective part of the cord coming back. I reclaimed my flame using my guilt. The other person was rolling her eyes and was not happy. I feel much warmer inside and lit again. This was one way of soul shards retrieval. Soul shards which were not lost in a specific trauma, but were lost in a relationship. If it worked for you, great. And if it didn't, as I said, maybe something more different is needed. And someone shared me during the process, they noticed that their soul was scattered with more than one similar personality as my dad, former friend and partners, reclaiming the pieces, feeling much better, tingly and whole. I'll continue this experience. I'm stopping reading. You can read for yourself if you like. Just to say that this specific process is something that if we were ready for it, we don't have to do it again every day or every week. Like something comes back. It's like setting a broken bone back and now it can heal. If on the other hand, we weren't ready for it, and we need to do more work around that, then it may feel like it feels better, then it goes away, then we have to do it again. And it's more like an hygiene keeping thing. We have to wash every day because we sweat every day, right? So if you feel yourself that you keep having to go back to this kind of exercise, then it's a sign that deeper work is needed. Nothing wrong about you, just more work is needed before it can just settle and stay with you. Yeah. Also, if the other person is still strongly attacking, reattaching, pulling parts back, and they're still trying to control you, then of course you may need to do more and more of that more often. And because you're not just sweating, someone is throwing garbage at you. So you're more dirty as a result. Okay. Okay. Now we'll move, if that's okay. Are you okay? Do you need a moment to like drink or move or shake or something maybe? We've done a bit of deep work, even though it was short one. Why don't we stretch a bit and get back to our bodies? Yeah. Maybe have a drink of water. Okay, good. Okay, so the third and last piece for today talk. We're finally getting to the pre and perinatal stuff. Kate, this one is for you. And it's for everybody, of course. Okay. So now I will present an idea and then I will take us through the process. Okay? The idea is surprisingly simple, yet for me at least it's new. I just thought about it a short while ago through becoming more in touch with prenatal and perinatal work, through Kate here and through our birth journey in the UK, sister school. When we come into the world as souls, when we come into the body, when the environment that we are in is strongly lacking in the ability to nurture us, to love us for ourselves, to be ourselves and have people happy that we are ourselves. We sense it on the soul level before we have nervous system, before we are born and see the smile or lack of smile on our mother's face, before a more tangible trauma happens during pregnancy or birth. on the soul level, we realize that we have arrived into a place where we can't be fully and be accepted. It's much before conscious thought. And when that happens, a part of our soul usually disengages, disconnects, and goes somewhere. And we can spend the rest of our lives looking for that part. And the thing is that without that part, we are more vulnerable to narcissistic bonding. It's the part that if we were in touch with it, we would not stand our parents' narcissistic aspects. So in order to be accepted and survive, we had to give away that part, to lose that part. And reconnecting with that part may help us be less vulnerable and more empowered in our relationships today. That's the basic idea. Okay. So please find a comfortable position, sitting or lying down. This process is a bit longer, so make yourself comfortable, please. Gently close your eyes. Let's take a few deep and gentle breaths. Inhaling, exhaling. Letting go for a moment of the here and now. And going back on the soul level, on our soul level, to a time long, long ago, maybe even before we were conceived, to that place where our soul was at before the sperm made the egg, before we decided or agreed to come here. Notice how you are at that place and time. If we look at ourselves on the soul level, how much soul mass do we have? How much light is there? What color is it? And now we move slowly in time forward. Maybe just before conception, maybe during or after, to that time when we realize for the first time that the place that we're coming into cannot nurture us fully as we need. Maybe it's about something very narcissistic, maybe the reason is different, but we know in our not yet formed bones, we know on our soul level that some of ourselves just doesn't have a place here. And notice what happens on the soul level to yourself at that moment. Notice what soul mass is being disconnected or cut off. runs away somewhere. Notice how what cannot be accepted in the place that we've just come into goes away, and what remains is less than before. It could be that there's just one piece, it could be that several or many. For today, let us focus on one or just a few if you feel like it. That it feels like we can get in touch with them. We can follow their path. And walk or fly or float to wherever they are. Send the tendrils of ourselves after them. Maybe they're nearby, maybe they're further away. It's okay. If something feels too difficult to find, go for some other self part, soul part. And we go there until we stand in front of that self part or parts. And we take a long moment just being in their presence, allowing them to be in our presence while breathing. Slowly allowing some form of recognition form. Maybe it feels right to tell them, those parts, you are a part of my soul. It was lost so long ago. I didn't even remember you were gone. But I still missed you. And keep being present with them slowly, noticing how these words touch them and yourself. Notice if anything wants to move or to change between you two. And allow it in your mind's eye. Notice how it feels to tell these soul parts, I'd like you to come back with me. I'd like us to reconnect, to be together again. I don't want to spend the rest of my life without you. Please come back with me. How does that feel? You may feel that you need some help in getting them back, in which case ask for help deeply inside you and see how it manifests. Don't push anything. Maybe you just need more time. Maybe they're already ready to come back. We couldn't find it at that moment. Maybe some other time they will be accessible. If you're now with them and they're ready to come back, or at least to try to come back with you, then please take them and go back to yourself at that time, at the very, very early stage of life. And allow them to just reconnect with the rest of your soul mass. And notice how it feels. If it's not ready, it needs more time, then you could continue with it a little bit later. Now just see what part of it is ready to come back and invite it to come back with you. Or promise it that you will give it more time later if it can come back with you now. You have to keep that promise. Take a moment to notice how it feels when it comes back. What it needs to reintegrate. What do you need in order to accept it back? Maybe it's completely natural. Maybe a little bit of help or more is needed. It's okay. And when whatever amount of soul has come back, begin to move forward in time through the pregnancy. Notice when you reach some stages that feels difficult. Maybe something happened to your mom or to your parents. Maybe something more physical happened, more emotional. Notice how you feel now at those places when you have these soul parts back with you. Can you handle the situation differently, internally, now that you're with them? Continue through pregnancy and into birth. Just notice what happens. Don't go into lots of details, but just notice how it feels to go through the birth process on the soul level when you have that part with you. Is there a difference? From the birth into your first life experiences, whatever they were, into growing up, through more pleasant and less pleasant times. Notice how it feels to experience that when you have these soul parts with you now. Is there a difference? Notice how your relationship with your parents is now on the soul level. When you're young, when you're in touch with that part. Move forward in time. Kindergarten, school, first relationships, first boyfriend or girlfriend. How are you in these relationships when you're in touch with that soul part, when it's a part of you? Is there any difference in how you felt back then with what was possible for you back then? Move on through adolescent years and early manhood or womanhood. Through your 20s, 30s, 40s. Relationships, maybe marriage, maybe children, maybe not. Just notice how you are through all of these. When you are in touch with those soul parts, is there a difference? Continue through the relationship with narcissistic people, partners, friends, family, children, parents, until you reach today, now. All the time noticing if there is any difference in how you relate to people and what happens to you in relationships, especially with narcissistic people. Finally, please take some deeper breaths. And slowly come back to the here and now. this Zoom meeting, with this physical body. How are you now? What did you find out? Is there any change in how you feel towards narcissistic relationship now? It's okay if you need a moment to come back fully. It was a deep journey.
Can we speak?
Yes, please.
That was really cool. Being at the point before birth, knowing and at a soul level that I wasn't going to be nourished, felt empowering, and it felt like something clicked. And then when we were looking at the energetics, mine's wasn't pre-birth, but it was like pre-teens, where I suffered from an eating disorder because there was like a strong lack of connection in my life and nourishment. And it was like the love was given to me and then taken away. And I would do the same with food. So I would like eat and eat and eat and then like let it go. And whenever I was able to tell that part of me, like, I love you, like you're part of me, my heart skipped a beat. And like she looked at me, that part of me, she looked at me with like you love me, like I'm horrible. And I was like, I give her a hug and it just felt like a part of me just got back together. And then whenever I started my life again with that part in place, oh my God, like I could see myself from a whole different perspective. It was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing this. I'm really glad to hear. And reading from the comments, that was great. Feel strength and presence, no longer cowering. I can look at them, feel compassionate, and no need at all to get involved. Feeling with me, strong, full and content, no pull at all. Someone else wrote, before coming back to me, my soul said to me, I will only come back to me if you protect me and stay with me without giving me away. All the narcissistic people seeing me, holding my soul, were a bit lost, surprised, found out and disappointed that their game was found out. I feel full of myself, no need for something from the other. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is often what I find happens when we get back in touch with those parts that our narcissistic environment or deficient environment, nurturing wise, and could not accept. When we get them back, we are less prone, less vulnerable to narcissistic relationships. Which is what I hope you came here for. And so identifying and being able to become less vulnerable is what I was hoping to give today. Is there anything more someone would like to share or to ask? Oh, please, Robert.
Well, that's incredible. Couple of things. One was like the part of me that was not born or brought with me. Like it was kind of easy to integrate, but there was a part of it, like it was like he was sleeping and by himself for so long. That was a part of his experience. And I couldn't bring that with me because that's so foreign to me. It was like that was something I still need to try and integrate or reconcile somehow, that there's this part of me that has this really long experience of being left alone, and then there's this part of me that doesn't have that experience. So it's hard to integrate that. But then coming through my life process, I could see like lots of significant choices I made in my life that I would have actually made differently, because I'd made quite a few from compromise and for looking for something that I felt I didn't have, and experiencing that with me, with that whole sense of wholeness. It was like, well, I'm not, one, I'm certainly not going to compromise, and two, it was, I would have made different decisions. So not from a place of regret, but quite impactful insight to have. Thanks so much for it.
Thank you. Glad to hear. There's some more comments. I found a huge soul part with my brother who died when I was very young. I gave it to him, and that felt like my happiness and love that I could never use. So I took it back and felt much happier with the ability to now have it in my life. I'm really glad to hear. This is often also the case when there is a vanishing twin, that a part of us lives with the dead twin, and we need to retrieve it. Full of yourself, interesting. Now that's perceived as being egoistic, but in this context of the exercise we just did, it feels so good and right. Being full of ourselves is good. Being full of shit and full of ourselves in that way is not so good. My body feels warm and loud with soft colors, a sense of rewiring, and felt body remembering a new full sense of wholeness. This is how it feels to have more of our soul. Thank you. Minelli, please.
So just thank you for this beautiful experience. It was really something else, because the visuals were also so vivid for me. So when I did start the guided visualization, I saw this really large, like a really large part of my soul. Like it was more like I was connecting to this, enormous part, which then kept changing form and changing shape. And initially it didn't sort of really want to move back in with me. And there was this whole conversation of, please, I would love to have you back. It would be really nice. And, just sort of, till then it sort of changed form into this cat, and just sort of like moved onto my chest, and then was just purring on my chest, and just sort of like imbibed into me. There was this movement of like, I don't know, the soul that I was with this other being. And just being able to look at all these different phases of my life as you took us through them, and every time, this, like, there was this sort of narcissism that came across, and how differently I might have handled it. So that was really interesting, from the younger age to the older versions of me. So thank you for that. Yeah, it was really beautiful.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. There are some bit longer messages. I won't read them, but you can read for yourself. Yeah. So I hope this mini lesson workshop was useful for you. It is free, It is recorded. The recording will be shared with you. You're welcome to watch it again and experience the processes again until you feel comfortable with them and gain everything you can from them. And you're also welcome to share them with other people. It's for the world. Whoever takes it, I'm glad. If you are interested in learning with me in more depth and more focus on personal processes and how to work with people with their shadows, their family constellations, and their soul level issues, you're welcome to join the Shadow Constellations trainings. We'll be having one, Kate and Brett School and myself, which will begin on the 9th of October, Mondays, evening Israel time, 5:30 Israel time. Kate will tell us in a moment when is it Eastern time. It's a 10 lessons of 3.5 hours each, in which we learn how to identify our shadows as professionals, work with them to become safer and deeper and more whole. We go through shadows in the clinic and cultural shadows, collective shadows, golden shadows, which is what we envy in others, shadows of helplessness and aggression, vulnerability and sexuality, and shadows of death. So we cover lots of major things. And afterwards, there will be an advanced training for those who took the first one, in which we'll go deeper into collective shadows and lots of soul work and soul shards retrieval in my style. So if you're interested in that, Kate shared the link for the new training. And you're welcome to join us, and you're welcome to let others know about it. I would appreciate it. You don't have to. It's not something that you must do, but if you feel like doing, would appreciate it. If you're interested to follow up other activities and events with me, please visit my website, niresterman.com. At the bottom of each page, you can register for my mailing list. I don't write much, mostly once a month, so you won't be flooded with marketing manipulations to make you a part of any funnel. And just let you know what I'm offering and share some new blog posts and ideas that I play with once a month or 2 or 3. Yeah. If you feel that there is something that you would like to share with me personally from this workshop, please feel free to write me. You can write me through my website contact page or through my email, nir.esterman@gmail.com. I'm also easy to find on Facebook, Nir Esterman. And also, if you feel that you left this lesson feeling somewhat off and you need a hand in getting back into how you were before you came, in case this is what you would like to have. Additionally, this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we'll be giving a workshop in person in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. If you happen to be in the area of Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, etc., you're most welcome to join. There are still several places left, or if you have colleagues over there who would be interested, I would appreciate you sharing it with them as well. You can find the training on my website, other courses, Shadow Constellations workshops, NL, Netherlands, and Sonia here is the organizer. I really want to thank you, everybody, for being here today and taking what you could and wanted to, and not taking what you didn't want to. And I hope to hear from you and see you in the trainings or in some other way. Yeah, thank you. Kate, would you like to add anything?
No, I've posted in the chat the links and the times, and happy to answer any questions about the registration for the upcoming training with Nir. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me or to Nir, and we'll see you next time.
Yes. Everybody, it's the Jewish holidays now, so happy new Jewish year to you all. And I wish us all to be more whole and less dependent, and more able to create a heart-to-heart, a healthy connection with people that we care about and care about us. Thank you. We'll be in touch.